I actually quite like Peter Thiel. He's got some great quotes. Competitions for losers. He's got some great IP.
Well, that's part of my journey here, by the way. It's just like figuring out on Wall Street that, he describes a pattern of people who are like, they're good in school. They get very, very competitive because school makes you want to be competitive. Yeah. And they get into these games because they like winning.
Right.
And they like hard competition. So you go into finance because it's like all the smart people are here. And you get this great feeling of competition. It's like, oh, I'm going to beat them and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, it's a lot more productive to go into a field where you don't have as much competition, where it's like actually a lot easier. You may not feel as good about yourself because, you're saying like, well, this is not difficult. But what are you trying to do? Are you trying to prove to yourself that you're good at winning a game, or are you trying to build something?
Yeah, and then this is a great point, and this is all probably covered in Peter's book 0 to 1. But in order to not be competing all the time, then you have to create something new, which takes a lot of risk and chances, which, like you said, we're not conditioned to in our education system. We're conditioned to get the test right and to win by a little bit, and that's not always where the greatest advancements are.
Yeah.
In technology and humanity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Peter has some great points. Not betting against Elon is a smart thing. I saw a recent New York Times article that wasn't talking about electric cars. It was talking about the fact that Tesla produced like double the volume of cars year on year, and how just its car production, inventory management, able to change even the technology of their cars and their production system was smoking the traditional car makers. And so there was just an interesting note. Forget about the electric car innovation. Just their innovation as a manufacturer was making everybody look potentially bad. And I spent some time at Ford Motor Company, and I could see how that could happen. So I think that's smart. Maybe let's not bet against Elon. But also, I don't believe all the stories I hear about the driverless car mechanisms. And I haven't been in a Tesla, but I probably wouldn't put driverless on when I was in there.
Yeah, no, the thing also is that one of the early intuition that Waymo had, which I think is quite good, is they started their system for highway assistance, and so they got some Googlers and they said, "Do you want to test drive something?" And they made them some papers saying you need to keep your wheels, hands on the wheel at all time, and you're going to be recorded and so on and so forth. And then they do that, and then they find out that the people who say, "Yeah, sign all these documents," they started, saying, like just laying down, completely reclining in the car, applying makeup or all this sort of thing. And what they realize is if you have a system that's like 99% safe, it's really hard to get people to pay attention. Why would you pay attention when the car never has a problem? Right. And so in some sense, it can make it less safe because you never have to do anything. It's hard to pay attention because 1 in 10,000 times we're going to need you to do something. Yeah. That doesn't work. So you either have something that's very basic, like lane assistance or like cruise control, or you go all the other way. But there's a valley where automation can actually make it more dangerous. Huh. And the way that Tesla handles it is by trying to monitor you. But I would feel it almost, I worry that I would feel it almost more tiring to like have to pay attention without actually driving.
Right. That's interesting. So it's monitoring you and the road potentially at the same time. Wow. So many question marks. But like you said, when this technology gets mastered, it will change the world in a massive way, won't it? Just back to finance, and then I want to jump into your journey with Tezos and the blockchain. I agree with you. I say that even high-frequency trading, and I know people think we're joking, does help humanity. I think all finance helps humanity. When I started Wall Street, we had a fixed floating swap book. It was an innovation on Wall Street. It just had done 5 years earlier, where you could actually borrow or lend at a fixed rate versus a floating rate for however maturity you want. And we created that derivative instrument. And I know on the back of it, projects were built, dams were built, student loans were made. I mean, this depth of finance empowered so many things in the world to be done. And I think it's maybe something we don't talk about enough in the blockchain industry, but pure finance has almost always marked the upsurge of humanity, whether it's the Industrial Revolution or everything. And again, the best stuff typically came from, New York, London, Hong Kong, the major financial centers, but now it's happening on the blockchain. So it's an important point to make. Tell me about your journey then of this puzzle that you started off looking at, but then you also took some action. You tried to go from 0 to 1 early when a lot of people would just admire the tech in the background, have a nice job at Google, hang out with Sergey. You didn't have to go down this route that ended up taking you on quite a ride.
So it was, like for me, started with Bitcoin, of course, and Bitcoin was at the confluence of a lot of things that I was interested into. So first it was, the theory of money and banking, what makes money money. And a lot of things that tripped people about Bitcoin at first is that it was, say, oh, it's backed by nothing, that can't possibly work. And I had done a lot of thinking, before Bitcoin, I had done a lot of thinking about why does money have value? Understanding, what is a convenience yield? Like, how does fiat currency work? I was interested in, the Swiss dinar, that wonderful story about fiat currency not backed by any government and having value in Kurdistan. So I was really into that, and I had come to the conclusion that the best money is backed by absolutely nothing. It just has a scarce supply and is backed by nothing. So that was not an intellectual obstacle for me, on the opposite. And in fact, early on, people told me, oh, Bitcoin is backed by energy. And I was like, oh, I'm not interested. Because, energy production is going to go up a lot. And so as a result, of course, it's not backed by energy. Right. But I think people were trying to say that to make people interested in it. And I was more interested when I found out it was not backed by anything. That made it a lot more interesting. The other thing that so theory of money and banking. How does money work? Why does money have value? Exchange and so on and so forth. The other thing that I was interested in was cryptography. I had been interested in cryptography since basically high school, when I started looking at number theory and encryption. And I was in high school learning about number theory at the same time that internet was really picking up, and we were talking about encryption on the internet. So I had this interest as well.